What's up, and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, October 14th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White, a very tan Scott White. Scott waited until the summer was over to go out and get tanned. I love it.
It's never not summer here in South Florida, Frank.
That is true. What was I thinking?
Yeah, I was. So my kids, knew, both of them, kids plural, their little league season started, and I was standing on the field helping assist the very, very reluctant coach. And just standing, I wasn't moving around that much. I was just standing there. But I was drenched in sweat by the end of it because the humidity was so great, even here in October. And yes, I got some coloration on the skin. I did not burn. I actually do tan pretty well. I just rarely go outside. So you don't see me tanned very often, but yeah, it doesn't look half bad.
No, it doesn't. One of the first things I said when we hopped in this StreamYard room together was, Scott, either your color is off on your camera or you got some sun this weekend, because I'm not used to it. But all right, there you go. Assistant coach, bench coach, Scott White. I'm interested to see how that goes. So if you have any great stories, great little league stories, feel free to just bring them up.
It's a very unofficial capacity.
Alrighty. Today on the show, we left off last podcast recapping our preseason sleepers and breakouts. Today we'll hit on the bus picks, what we got right and what we got wrong, and then we will draft the first 2 rounds for 2026. We did this at the All-Star break as kind of, redrafting the first 2 rounds for the second half of the season. Obviously, a lot has changed since then, so Scott and I will alternate picks, get those wheels turning a little bit for next season. But first, we are down to the final 4 teams, Scott, in the playoffs. Dodgers going up against the Brewers. As of recording, we have the Brewers up 2-0 in game 1. If anything crazy happens, we will alert the listening audience, although you'll probably already know what happened by the time you're listening to this. And we got the Blue Jays going up against the Mariners. The Mariners, by the way, who went into Toronto, into Rogers Center, and won the first 2 games of that series, which is crazy stuff. Bryce Miller, I noticed in game 1, velocity was way up in that start. He pitched well, 6 innings, 1-run ball. Game 2, it was just bombs away for the Mariners. We got homers from Julio Rodriguez, Jorge Polanco, and Josh Naylor. Just to get to this level in the ALCS, by the way, for the Mariners, a 15-inning marathon last Friday night, which feels like ages ago, but that was a crazy game. Not sure you caught any of that, Scott.
I did. I caught quite a bit of it. And it kept going. We don't see those 15-inning games during the regular season anymore because of the ghost runner rule, but they get rid of it for the playoffs, understandably. I don't think anybody minds sticking around 15 innings for a game-deciding or series-deciding game like that. But, Jorge Polanco had a lot of big hits this postseason. He got another one to walk that one off. And the Mariners... Did we both pick the Mariners at the start of the playoffs to advance to the World Series? I think we did.
I believe we both had Mariners Phillies, but we had different teams winning.
Yeah. And I expressed a rooting interest for the Mariners, if I may. If I may do that in my supposedly disinterested capacity. Yeah, I hope the Mariners go well. Though it does seem like the Dodgers are going to be hard to beat. They have they pulled it off yet against the Brewers?
No, actually, they have second and third with 1 out with a 2-run deficit. So threatening up against Roki Sasaki in the 9th inning. So
yeah, there you go. Can't count it. Can't count on anything too soon in the playoffs. Things could, the Dodgers could still not make the World Series. This is game 1.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we both mentioned we're going for the Mariners in the ALCS. So naturally, we just lost our Canadian listening audience. So, nothing against the Blue Jays, but they eliminated my Yankees. I still think they're going to be a tough out, even though they're down 2 games to none right now. I'm not sure it's over just yet for the Blue Jays. It's a long 7-game series at this point. Let's get into our bust picks from before the season. Some of the names we got right, some of the names we got wrong, kind of like we did last episode. Just kind of talk through some of our thought processes and kind of what we learned from some of those picks. So Scott, maybe the bust pick you got most right, or one of them, was Mark Vientos. And I mentioned this last episode, Junior Caminero versus Mark Vientos was a huge talking point and discussion. It was, that was a pick that many people had to make, deciding between those two. And your season would have gone very differently depending on who you took between Junior Caminero and Mark Vientos.
Yes. And if you had read any of my content in the preseason, you would have known to take Caminero instead of Vientos. Vientos, of course, they did have as a bust. And I think it played out very much like I thought it would. So the problem with Mark Vientos, of course, he had a great season for the Yankees or for the Mets in 2024, hitting 27 home runs. And that was only in 111 games. So it took him a while to get the third base job, but he did go on to hit 27 home runs at an 837 OPS. A lot of people thought he could build on that with an even better season. But he was still a player with pretty bad plate discipline, a very low walk rate that kept his on-base percentage down, some strikeout issues that actually part of the reason Vientos entered the lineup as an everyday player for the Mets is because he seemed to be improving in terms of strikeouts, but then he kind of lost all of it again in the second half, managed to perform well in spite of it, but that obviously created a concern there for him. And then he's a right-handed hitter who doesn't get on base at a particularly high rate, whose defense is suspect. Now, once they brought back Pete Alonso, it was pretty clear Vientos was going to have to be good enough offensively for the Mets to justify playing him at third base consistently. And when you don't have the platoon advantage as a right-handed hitter, you're struggling to get on base. It just seemed like there was a narrow margin for error there. Taking all those factors into account, the poor on base skills, the vulnerability to strikeouts, the suspect defense, the right-handedness, and by the way, Brett Beatty still in the organization. Obviously, Vientos outperformed him considerably in 2024. That's how he got the job. But it wasn't an open and shut case. If Vientos gave any of that back, and he did, he gave a lot of it back. And meanwhile, Beatty took this step forward to the point that by the end of the season, it was Beatty playing even more consistently than Vientos was. So it was just a situation where you had a player seemingly coming off a breakout season, but people were ignoring some of the risk factors there and taking it all at face value, even in some cases presuming continued improvement for Vientos. And if the cost was different, if everybody was skeptical of this breakthrough for Vientos, I might have taken a different stance and been like, okay, let's see the glass half full with this guy. But when the cost was what it was for Vientos, as you said, going in some drafts even higher than Junior Caminero, it's like, I could see ways for this to go wrong. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, the weirdest part for Vientos this past season was that his strikeout rate actually improved, but I think it came at the cost of him hitting for the same power that he did the year prior. Now, he did pick things up in the second half a little bit. He had some moments, but overall, 233 batting average, 17 home runs. Not a great season there from Mark Vientos. So good call from you on that one. Wanted to mention two names here that I was pretty pleased with as bust calls before the season. Ronald Acuna. Now, this one is interesting. He had a preseason ADP of 37.6. He finished 148th overall. He was still really good when he played this season, but part of the reason why I was fading him was I always thought that he would debut a little bit later than they were kind of leading on. I think the people who drafted him in the third or fourth round might have thought, okay, he'll be back May 1st, and he'll just kind of be Ronald Acuna. And so he didn't debut until May 23rd, so later than I think most people thought. He missed time later in the season as well with some left Achilles tendonitis and missed a month with that as well. So only wound up playing 95 games, and he just didn't run. And that was part of the issue too. I just didn't know which version of Ronald Acuna we were going to get. And that question is still out heading into next season too. We don't really know how much he's going to run. He's still an extremely talented player. He's in the prime of his career. He hit for great power. He scored a bunch of runs. The batting average was good. but he's had so many lower leg injuries and has missed a lot of time so far in his career that I was worried about that. So I think that one actually kind of worked out well, fading Ronald Acuna in that spot. And then the other one was O'Neal Cruz, who it looked bad early on in the season, right? Because he got off to that great start, but the batting and the batting average and strikeouts just tanked his season. It was a preseason ADP of 37.4. So, a 3-4 turn pick there in a 12-team league. He finished 171st overall. That was despite 20 homers and 38 steals. The problem is he hit just 200 over a big amount of plate appearances, a 32% strikeout rate, a sub 700 OPS. So while the power was okay, obviously you wanted more. The speed was very good. Everything else was pretty bad. And obviously the batting average was abysmal there. And I think we're left with even more questions on O'Neal Cruz than we are Ronald Acuna heading into next year. It's, can he hit lefties? He's been awful against them in his career. And now the strikeouts have continued to pile up as well. So lots of questions on both of these guys, but I think based on where they were drafted, neither of them lived up to it. Ronald Acuna as like a 3rd round pick, and O'Neal Cruz actually right around that range as well.
Yeah, O'Neal Cruz definitely created some major concerns moving forward because we haven't seen much improvement from him other than just improving the steal total, as you mentioned. But as a hitter, there hasn't been the growth we wanted to see. And he was an active detriment to your fantasy team from about May 1st on.
Yeah.
Like, so much of his production came in April. May 1st on, he hit 185 with a 614 OPS. And so he's not going to have shortstop eligibility next year. It's just going to be outfield. And I don't think there is going to be a lot of enthusiasm for drafting O'Neal Cruz for really the first time in his major league career. He's not going to be that trendy, buzzworthy player in the early rounds who's like, okay, if he just does this, this, and this right, he's a 1st round caliber player, which might present a buying opportunity because the upside hasn't changed. I think it's just our confidence in O'Neal Cruz ever reaching it, given the lack of progress so far, given that he's now 27 years old. I think it's fair to be skeptical. I've actually spent past couple days working on outfield rankings, very deep position, obviously. Right now, I have O'Neal Cruz 24th for roto leagues and 27th for points leagues.
All right.
I don't know if that sounds surprising to you, high or low, or
my first thought is high
for
O'Neal Cruz. Yeah.
So let's see. He is ahead of Kyle Stowers and Tyler Soderstrom and Brandon Nimmo and Andy Pajes. Those are the next 4.
Yeah, all those players seem fine, but yeah, I was about to say if O'Neal Cruz hits his upside, obviously it's higher than those guys, but I don't know. The sample size is growing with O'Neal Cruz. I don't know if we can keep going back to that same, if he hits his upside, because he's been given a fair shake at this point and questions still remain. So I don't know. Like I still think there's variance in his game. I still think there's a level we haven't seen yet, but we've just seen so much downside from O'Neal Cruz. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe he should be ranked ahead of those names because I'm not sure that they're like true difference makers. Maybe the way that O'Neal Cruz could be, but I don't know. I'm kind of talking myself into a pretzel here. I've got to do some outfield rankings myself and see where I come out on that. What about the bust picks that we got most wrong? Last week we started off the podcast talking about Pete Crow Armstrong, which is just kind of the headliner here on this podcast. The other one was Jacob deGrom, who we were all kind of fading. And Scott, I think as we got closer to the season, you were more open to the idea of taking deGrom with some of the reports and velocity being down on purpose. But this one was pretty straightforward. We all knew it came down to health with Jacob deGrom, and he stayed healthy. He threw 172 and 2/3 innings. The first time he's even hit 100 innings since 2019, and he was very good. It was a 2.97 ERA, a 0.92 WHIP, over a strikeout per inning. He wasn't the dominant force that he once was, but I think that kind of comes with the territory. Him taking a little velocity off, not being the true ace, top of the league type pitcher, Jacob deGrom, but still being an SP1 type with this slightly diminished velocity.
Yeah. So my case for DeGrom being a bust, and I said multiple times leading up to the season, it was the bust pick I was most confident in. And that's because he upped his velocity beginning in 2020 after already winning 2 Cy Young awards. He was back-to-back Cy Young winner. And then he added a couple more miles per hour velocity. Okay, that's going to make him more dominant. And it did on a per inning basis. But I think the fact that he went 4 years throwing at that velocity, falling short of 100 innings each time, showed that his body just could not hold up. Like it would break. It would break when he got that kind of force on it. And so I just thought, okay, this is going to happen again. He's shown that he cannot hold up to this velocity. Something's going to happen again. But then he came out and he was throwing his fastball a couple miles per hour slower. Took a little velocity off. And that is about the velocity Jacob deGrom sat at in those 2 Cy Young seasons. The last time we saw him throw not just 100 innings, but 200 plus. And, by that point, the drafting was done. Because I think this didn't come out until the season already started, right? Or was it at the very end of spring training? I think the season had already started. It's like, what's wrong with deGrom's velocity? And it's like, well, he's doing this intentionally. He said it himself.
I think it was in spring training. I think before the season.
Okay. And I did end up with one share of him in the podcast listeners league because I at least became open to the possibility. Well, if my argument for why deGrom can't hold up is it's always been the case since he started throwing harder, maybe not throwing as hard will allow him to hold up. And that ended up being what happened. So good on him for figuring that out, because it's rare that you see a pitcher give up velocity voluntarily these days. But he obviously, his 2 Cy Young seasons showed he would. That's all the velocity he needed. No, on a per inning basis, he wasn't as dominant as from 2020 through 2024. But I think we would all agree that the overall outcome in fantasy was better this way. deGrom going 172 and 2/3 innings.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if we can get, he's up there in age. I think he's 36 or 37 years old, or turning 37 this offseason. But if we can get, 1 or 2 more years of numbers kind of close to this over, 150 to 170 innings, that would be a nice way for Jacob deGrom to kind of round out his career. So a very nice bounce back for him. Other bust picks that we got most wrong, Scott, Bryce Terang. I mean, this one is just, I think we were all kind of skeptical of the hitter, Bryce Terang, and he came out, up the average exit velocity like crazy, and just completely kind of changed his fantasy output this past season. So a quick thought on Bryce Terang.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of bust pick I can't exactly regret, because he just changed who he was. He started hitting the ball 3 to 4 miles per hour harder, both on average. And then you look at the max velocity, the increase was that much, was similar there for Bryce Terang. So, you can only go by the data that's available to you. And Bryce Terang just got better. And we saw that power manifest, especially in August when he started hitting the ball at the proper angles for home runs. So that's kind of the next step for him, I think, to sustain that, because he kind of went back to not pulling it in the air so much in September. But clearly Terang hits the ball hard enough now that he can be a power hitter. And with the stolen base ability we know he has, that could make for a very high-end outcome.
Couple preseason bust picks here that I got pretty wrong. Jazz Chisholm, I was just worried about the injuries and the fact that you had to use a second or third round price tag on him. The final ADP wound up being 21.8. So yeah, pretty much a second round pick in most leagues. He went 30-30 despite missing a month out of the season. And he's just been a much more impactful fantasy player since joining the Yankees about mid-season in 2024. So I don't really doubt the player. I still have some questions about the injuries and things, but for next season, he's entering a contract year. Players find a way to stay on the field and do amazing things in contract years. So I'm more open to the idea of using a second round pick on Jazz Chisholm in 2026. And with Robert Suarez of the Padres, I was completely out on this. He had a lack of strikeouts. He just relied heavily on the fastball. He took a step back in the second half of the year before in 2024. And there were really good relievers around him. Actually, this was a bust case that I was pretty confident in. I did not think it was going to work out for Robert Suarez. I think on the Beat FBT team that we all did together, we wound up taking him just because I think everyone felt the same way, and he just lasted really long, and he felt like the last kind of closer that had a job in that draft. And so we took him and reaped the rewards there. But I felt like the bust case for him was actually pretty solid. But to his credit, I think he mixed up his pitch mix a little bit more, and he was one of, if not the most reliable closer in fantasy this past season. So shout out to Robert Suarez. And he has an opt-out. I'm pretty sure he'll do that and get paid by some other team. And Mason Miller will either wind up being the closer or maybe a starter with someone else filling in as the closer for the Padres.
This is like my biggest draft regret this year. Yeah. And there was one league late in draft season. I was kind of the defender for Robert Suarez, but it felt like it was us against the world, Suarez and I against the world, in terms of still believing he could hold on to the closer role. And so one of my last drafts, I succumbed to the masses, and I went against my own rankings, took Jordan Romano ahead of Robert Suarez. And like, I hate,
sorry, I influenced you, Scott.
I mean, it wasn't just you. Like, this was it's the way everybody was talking about Robert Suarez. I just, I'm
pretty sure he looked bad in spring training too. Like, it was just compounding everything. Yeah.
No, he was. But yeah, it was making too much of too little, was basically my argument at the time.
Yeah.
But everybody's got to be, the smart guy who sees the unexpected thing happening. And it got to a point where there was such consensus over this. Oh, Robert Suarez is going to collapse, that even though I was like, yeah, but there's a good chance he doesn't. I ended up, that's like, this is something I need to, because I talked about this with Pete Crow Armstrong a couple weeks ago too. Like, I need to get better at tuning out the voices,
Yeah.
And
it's tough, man. It's loud in spring training. It is loud.
I used to not follow any other fantasy baseball people on Twitter. I used to just follow baseball writers, to get it was basically a news feed for me, right? That's what I had set up. But then I started following other fantasy baseball people, and it's too much. I hear too much of what other people are thinking. It clouds my own judgment, and maybe I need to start unfollowing people. I don't know. They probably won't appreciate that much, but it's too much. I can't handle it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lesson for all of us is, if you have convictions, just try not to be swayed. I think there are a lot of smart people out there, and I follow people because, I realize, I'm not always going to be right about things, and I kind of want to be challenged and hear what other people have to say. But, sometimes it can throw you off maybe one of your prior opinions or things like that. And spring training is tough too, because again, it's like things start to pile up and, you kind of feel that pressure. So that is a lesson to be learned there as well. Busts, I will admit, man, busts for me are the hardest to choose before the preseason. It's like, even someone like Robert Suarez, you're kind of grasping at things. You're trying to find reasons. Why can this player be a bust? And it's like, they're just inherently harder for me to choose. I kind of want to see the glass half full on a lot of players, and most of them just wind up being players I think are going to get hurt. And this past season, that didn't work out very well. Guys like Jazz and DeGrom and Brian Wu, those are some of my biggest misses. And obviously those guys were able to stay healthy this past season. Big thanks to those watching live. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more fantasy baseball content all off season long. We appreciate you being here watching live or on demand, however you are listening or consuming this. Let's take a break. We'll be back. We'll hit some quick news, and then we'll draft the first 2 rounds for next season. We'll do that right after this.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount+.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Before we hit the news and notes, an update on Game 1 of the NLCS. The Dodgers did close it out, but man, that was a close game. Roki Sasaki came in with a 2-0 lead in the ninth inning. He gave up a run. There was bases loaded, and Blake Treinen actually struck out Bryce Terang to end that game. The Dodgers up 1-0 on the Brewers, but I have a feeling that's a series that could go pretty long there in the NLCS. Let's run through some news and notes. Not too much going on here, but we did get some big news out of nowhere Monday afternoon. Mike Schildt announced his retirement after his second season as the Padres manager. Obviously, did a pretty good job with the Padres. Not good enough. They weren't able to, go that deep into the postseason while he was there, but that now makes 8 total managerial openings this offseason. The Padres, Angels, Giants, Orioles, Braves, Twins, Nationals, and Rockies. Both Bo Bichette and Brandon Woodruff were both unavailable for the championship series rosters, their respective rosters. Bichette is still dealing with that knee injury. Brandon Woodruff dealing with a lat injury. Brian Wu did make the Mariners ALCS roster, is expected to pitch at some point in that series. He last pitched on Friday, September 19th, due to a pectoral strain. Tanner Scott was removed from the Dodgers NLDS roster, was not included on the championship series roster. Turns out that he had surgery to remove an abscess from his lower body. Dave Roberts said the hope is that Tanner Scott could be available for the World Series if they make it that far. It's a very vague injury. We didn't get many details in terms of what's going on here. Just some kind of abscess removed for Tanner Scott. No surprise, but Cody Bellinger will opt out and become a free agent this offseason. Nathan Eovaldi underwent surgery to repair a sports hernia. Speaking of which, it turns out Gleyber Torres also needs surgery for a hernia. He said it's been bothering him for about a month. And Gleyber really faded in the second half, Scott. We didn't talk too much about that in season. He had the great first half, hit 281, 812 OPS. Second half, 223 with a 659 OPS. So I think most of that was him just regressing and coming back to the player that we know Gleyber Torres is. Perhaps part of it was him playing through this injury, and now he needs hernia surgery in the offseason. Braves beat writer Mark Bowman expects Ha-Seong Kim to decline his $6 million player option with 16. The Braves. 16, yes. And this is something you've kind of been all over, Scott. You said the shortstop market is not great, and this was always a possibility that Ha-Seong Kim could become a free agent. It hasn't happened yet, but speculation that it will.
Yeah, I could see it going either way. I mean, obviously, after the year Kim just had, $16 million is a lot, but shortstop is a premium position that's difficult to fill. And if there's more than 2 teams that need one, because we're presuming Trevor Stoyop's out of the rest of his deal with the Red Sox, so it would be him and Bo Bichette. If there are more than 2 teams, which you would imagine there are, looking for a shortstop, then yeah, Kim could probably get a multi-year deal averaging about $16 million per, even after having such a bad performance.
Mm-hmm. And the last news item I have here, Jordan Lawler and Carter Jensen will both play winter ball in the Dominican Republic. Some, big name prospects there. Jordan Lawler still learning other positions there, with Geraldo Perdomo just fully locked in as the D-back shortstop for now. So between second base, third base, I think Jordan Lawler will try to lock down some of those positions this offseason. And Carter Jensen, who finished the season very strong with the Royals, way too early, maybe sleeper candidate. Both those guys going out to play some winter ball in the Dominican Republic. All right, Scott, let's get those wheels turning for 2026 by drafting the first 2 rounds. We'll be doing this for a roto/categories league, but we could provide some commentary on head-to-head points leagues as well. No Chris, unfortunately, but we will just alternate picks here, Scott. We'll go back and forth, get through the first 2. You are up. You're on the clock. First overall pick.
It's Aaron Judge. It's,
all right,
to me, as clear of a number 1 overall pick as we've had in a while. I mean, obviously Ohtani, they're kind of 1 and 1A, I guess. But now that Ohtani doesn't have the big steals advantage, that it was really just the 1 year where he stole a ridiculous number of bases, and it was a year where he didn't have to worry about pitching at all, 2024. But now that he's back to pitching, he kind of stopped doing that so much. Meanwhile, Judge, not only is he historically great power hitter, a guy who's hit 50 plus homers 3 of the past 4 seasons now and was on pace to do it each of the last 4 seasons. It's just one of those years he missed some time with injury. So not only is he that, but he's become maybe the top bet for batting average as well.
He's like Luis Ariz with 50 plus homers. It's crazy.
Yeah, because he just won a batting title hitting 331 after hitting 322 last year, and the year he hit 62 home runs, 311. So he's hit, not only has he hit 50 plus homers 3 of the last 4 years, but the same 3 of the last 4 he's hit 310 or better. And it's hard to find a bankable, surefire 300 hitter to begin with, but particularly one who, just so happens to be the best power hitter in the game too.
A quick follow-up here. If Judge has off-season surgery on this elbow flexor thing that's going on, would he remain your top pick for next season?
Yeah. I don't look, it's possible. It's possible that it compromises him as a hitter, but I don't think we usually see that with elbow injuries. And it would be surgery to correct an injury he was playing through and still performing.
We just saw Ohtani do this last year, right?
Yeah, well, Ohtani's was a shoulder, so that was more concerning. But
well, no, I'm talking about the year prior. He had Tommy John surgery, signed with the Dodgers, and then had the 50-50 season, right?
Yeah, right. Ohtani's crazy, man. Never underestimate Ohtani, which I guess I am by putting Aaron Judge ahead of him. But anytime you doubt Ohtani, he seems to find a way to get even better. Anyway, who are you taking with the second pick, Frank?
We will doubt him no longer, Scott, because Shohei Ohtani is the second overall pick. No surprise here. Back-to-back 50 home run seasons here. 54 plus homers in back-to-back seasons. He's had 130 plus runs scored in back-to-back years. Yes, some things came down, the batting average and the steals. Obviously, we expected the steals to come down as he was ramping back up as a pitcher and all that. Batting average came down, but still hit 282, provided 20 steals. It's just across the board production. He has posted an OPS over 1,000 3 straight years. And in leagues where you can reap the rewards of both his hitter and pitcher production, he should be the first overall player in those leagues. And he reminded us of his talent as a pitcher as well. 2.87 ERA, a 104 whip, nearly 12 K per 9. He did that in 14 starts and has gone 6 innings in back-to-back starts, his final regular season outing, and then his first outing of the postseason as well. We'll also have a full season of Ohtani pitching next year, presumably. We hope that would be the case. Does that take anything else away from his hitting now that we get a full season as a pitcher again? Expose him to a little bit more injury. Do either of those things worry you at all for Ohtani?
No. I mean, he was rehabbing as a pitcher basically all of this year. Obviously, we've seen him pitch and hit at the same time before, and he's still performed at an MVP level. So the decline in steals, as I already mentioned when I was talking about Judge, the decline in steals from Ohtani to 59, from 59 is how many he had in 2024 to, let's see, this year it was 20, 59 to 20. And I attribute that to him returning to pitching, but it's already happened. So I think you can still pencil him into 15 to 20 steals. And as a hitter, he just seems to keep getting better and better as a hitter.
All right, Scott, over to you for the third pick.
So this is, I think, the first tough call. About 3 ways you could go here, probably, particularly if you're playing the position scarcity game, but I'm not. I'm going with part of what was the trifecta, the 3 people competing for the first overall pick coming into 2024. Now, though, Bobby Witt is the clear number 3, coming off what was the first misstep, I guess, the first step back in his young career. He had gotten better each year until kind of getting a little worse this year. Mainly that's in terms of home run production. He dropped from 32 homers in 2024 to 23 this year. It's just a disappointing number for as high as he was drafted. And it would be disappointing if he did it again as the 3rd overall pick next year. But I don't see a lot of reason to believe that it's like the new baseline for him. Basically, his underlying data remained unchanged. So I think it was just kind of one of those things that happened. His home run production dropping from 32 to 23, and everything else was great. He still seems like the safest bet in the entire player pool to deliver plus production in all 5 rotisserie categories. So I think Bobby Witt is the right choice at 3rd overall.
Yeah, that's who I would take as well. The batting average is still great. The steals actually went up, which I guess in a down season, that's kind of the glass half full. The one shining moment is that the steals went up here to 38 for Bobby Witt. So we need the power to bounce back a little bit. The counting stats were down. I mean, I guess some of that could be blamed on the team around him with the Kansas City Royals. But overall, at his age, 225, it just, you don't have to really even squint to see him kind of getting back on track and having another monster season next season. Again, that was Bobby Witt Jr. 4th overall pick goes to me. And yeah, I think there's 2 clear players that I would be choosing from here. And I'm going to go with Juan Soto, though I don't really know what to expect for next season. He just finished as the 4th overall player in Roto, the 3rd best player in head-to-head points leagues, broke out of nowhere with a near 40-40 season. So 43 home runs, which was a career high for Soto. The counting stats are great every single year. 38 steals. He had, I believe, 7 the year prior. His career high was 12 before that. He had a total of 34 steals in his previous 4 seasons combined. Entering 2025, 34 steals, and then went out and had 38 in this season alone. So obviously there are rules to promote steals the past couple of seasons. We hadn't seen Soto kind of take advantage of that. There was a lot of credit given to the Mets and their coaching staff, their first base coach who kind of, helped coach up Soto and getting jumps and obviously being more aggressive on the base paths this year. But even if the steals come down, which I expect them to, right? Like if I had to project right now, I would probably expect like 15 to 20 for next season. It's back-to-back seasons with 40 plus homers, 120 plus runs, 105 plus RBI. Yeah, we would like to see more batting average out of Soto. I have reason to expect like it will get better just because he's such a ridiculously good hitter. But even if he doesn't, like if he hits around 270 with 40 homers, 15 steals, awesome counting stats, he's totally worthy of a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I think the justification for taking him here is, okay, maybe the steals come down. Maybe they don't, by the way. Yeah. Because it does seem like he became an effective base stealer. He'd never been a fast runner, Juan Soto, but he had been like ranking in the bottom of 3rd of the league in sprint speed. So this was actually his slowest year just in terms of sprint speed, 13th percentile. But he stole the 38 bases because he got better as a base stealer. So I would expect him to have fewer than 38 steals next year. How much fewer? I don't know. But he gave us probably his lowest case outcome for batting average at 263. So even if he gives back some of the steals, you would expect him to gain some in batting average. And of course, in the other 3 categories, he's a monster. So I think 4th overall in Roto in points leagues, put him ahead of Bobby Witt. He's 3rd overall because the plate discipline obviously does Juan Soto a lot of favors there.
I generally agree with you that I would expect the batting average to be better for Soto. His XBA was 300, but he also has underperformed his expected stats a lot throughout his career. And he is a 268 hitter over the last 4 seasons combined. So while I think that's like in his bag, it's in his skill set. The first 4 years of his career, he was a 301 hitter. The next 4 years, he's a 268 hitter. It doesn't exactly add up to me, but it also is a 4-year sample. So I don't want to just completely ignore that and say, he's going to hit for better batting average. I'd probably
I'm just saying, like, it doesn't get worse than this. It doesn't get worse than 260.
He had a year that he hit 242, you know, so
I know technically it got worse than that once, but it doesn't really get worse than this for Juan Soto.
I would mostly agree with that. All right, Scott, over to you for the 5th pick.
5th pick, I'm going to go Jose Ramirez. He's the other one we've been hinting at, and this seems like a very clear top 5. Yeah, maybe Jose Ramirez gets some bonus points for playing third base, which is one of the weakest positions. He's far and away number 1 there. I feel like, but just so bankable from year to year, keeps getting better as a base stealer. He set a career high last year, set it again this year. 30-30, if not 30-40 producer with a solid batting average and counting stats where you want them to be. So Jose Ramirez, 5th overall.
One of the most consistent players. He's finished as a top 6 player 4 of the past 5 years. Jose Ramirez, the batting average between 279 and 283 4 years in a row. He's gone 30-40 in back-to-back years. So he's getting a little bit older. You know, he's low 30s in terms of age, but he doesn't show any signs of slowing down. So I totally agree that should be the top 5 in some order for next season. And
now you get the first tough pick, Frank.
Yeah, I think things really open up here at pick 6. And this might surprise you a little bit, Scott, but I'm going with the player that I think is the most bankable at 6. I think all the other players that I would consider here all kind of have some wart. The only wart for this player is that he's a pitcher. So I'm going to go with Tarek Skubal, 6th overall here, because to me, he's just about as bankable as they come. Now, he's a pitcher, and obviously that comes with a ton of
pitchers aren't bankable. Yeah.
But in terms of just production and what we've seen from Tarek Skubal 2 years in a row, my guess is going to be a back-to-back AL Cy Young Award winner. Just finished as the SP1 in Roto. He was the SP2 in points leagues, but the skills actually somehow got better after a Cy Young season in 2024. 221 ERA, 0.89 whip, 11 K per 9. His swinging strike rate went up. He was ridiculous in the postseason as well. He had 2 starts with 13 or more strikeouts. So he is just very clearly, to me, the best pitcher in baseball. And while all pitchers come with risk, he, to me, feels like the next most bankable player. So I am ranking him as my 6th overall player for now. Maybe that changes in the offseason. But yeah, I'm going with Tarek Skubal at number 6.
So I actually have the top 3 pitchers higher in my rankings than I've ranked pitchers in recent years because I do think it is such a clear top 3. Tarek Skubal, obviously the first of those 3, but I do have a few hitters ahead of him. Skubal's my 9th ranked player. So you took him at 6th, which means I am going to take this next player 7th overall, and I'm going to go with Ronald Acuna, who obviously had a disappointing year. You talked about it earlier on the podcast. But as a hitter, he was great. It was really just he stopped running so much. And I'll remind you, coming back from the last time he tore an ACL in the opposite knee, tore an ACL, he came back the following year, and it was rough for Ronald Acuna in a lot of ways. I thought there was more reason to be concerned about his future then than there is the way he performed coming off the second torn ACL. But you and Chris both came around to the idea of drafting Acuna number 1 overall following that really concerning return from a torn ACL. And you were drafting him number 1 overall ahead of the record-setting Aaron Judge coming off the 62 homer season. And I thought you were crazy, but you ended up being right because Ronald Acuna went on to have maybe the best fantasy season all time for him, the 40 homer, 70 steal season. So I guess I'm taking a page from your book, only taking him 7th here, so not being nearly as aggressive, but being aggressive maybe compared to what most people's instincts would tell him to be, and just saying, okay, he's had a year. First year back from torn ACL was a little less than full capacity, but now that he's, it's going to be a full year removed from it. We expect him to get back to doing Ronald Acuna things. So yeah, I think 7th overall is where 6th overall actually, because I take him ahead of Skubal.
Yeah. So I actually have gone the other way so far. And again, this can
Yeah.
change in the offseason. I just kind of ranked my first 2 rounds earlier, and I had Acuna come in at 11 here. And that's me just kind of, I guess, playing it safe. There's an extra torn ACL in the book. He dealt with, some Achilles tendon inflammation in August of this past season. He's just dealt with a lot of lower body injuries, and I don't think he's going to get back to running the way he used to. I could be proven wrong by that, but this is just kind of, I guess, me playing it safe this early in the offseason and see kind of what we learn and how he looks, I guess, in spring training of next year.
For what it's worth, he didn't lose any sprint speed coming back from the second torn ACL. Sprint speed came in exactly the same as the previous 2 years, including the 70 steal season. So that doesn't, sprint speed doesn't determine how much you choose to run, but I think he'll run more. I don't think he'll steal 70 bases again, but I think we'll see him get back to 30 plus.
All right, so the top 7 picks so far, we had Judge, Ohtani, Bobby Witt Jr., Soto, Jose Ramirez, Tarek Skubal, and Ronald Acuna. Let's take our final break. When we return, we'll finish out the first round. We'll get into the second round. We'll do all that right after this.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons.
It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today we're drafting the first 2 rounds for 2026. We left off with Ronald Acuna as the 7th overall pick. I am up at 8, and I am going to go with Corbin Carroll, who this past season, 30-year career high 31 homers, batting average bounce back here. Just a bounce back season overall here for Corbin Carroll. He ran a ton more in the second half. We always thought it was weird that he had only 11 steals in the first half, just given how fast he is. I mean, you watch Corbin Carroll, and he's one of the fastest players in baseball. Had 21 steals in the second half. The XBA suggests maybe, there's a little bit more batting average upside, but he's a career 258 hitter. I would expect something around there for Carroll. So it's 260, 25 to 30 homers, 30 to 40 steals, good counting stats. And, outside of that little blip that we got with the shoulder a couple of years ago, I pretty much trust Corbin Carroll as a mid to late first round player at this point. So he checks in at number 8. And Scott, over to you for pick number 9.
I actually ranked this guy ahead of Carroll. It's Kyle Tucker, who obviously was banged up in the second half and fell off from the MVP pace he was on. But you look at his final numbers, 136 games, 266 batting average, 22 homers, 25 steals, and 841 OPS. I think he is better than Carroll in terms of batting average expectations. Certainly the plate discipline's better. So it's an easier call to make in points leagues. Kyle Tucker ahead of Corbin Carroll. It's a toss-up for me in Roto. I think if you wanted to play it safe, because Tucker's missed some time with injuries the past 2 years, okay, maybe that makes him a little safer than Carroll, but I don't think it's the kind of injuries that I worry about having a lingering effect for Tucker. Was a broken bone, right? That cost him most of the time in 2024.
Yeah, it was I think a fracture in his shin. And then he actually kind of had a weird thing play out this year too, where it was a hairline fracture in his right hand that they didn't reveal until months later when he was struggling through it. So
right, he was playing through it, and that helped to drive down the numbers, which again looked even better. As good as they ended up being, they were similar to Carroll if you pace them out over the same number of games. But that was with him having his numbers dragged down by playing through injury. So still in the prime of his career, obviously going a free agent this offseason. I think that'll actually help because Kyle Tucker's numbers at Wrigley Field were pretty bad. And
unless he goes back to Chicago, of course.
Yeah. But even then, I mean, I like what he did his first year with the Cubs well enough. Just hope for better health this time.
Yeah, and it does feel like everything was kind of derailed by that hairline fracture in his right hand. The first 3 months for Tucker, he was cruising, 291 batting average, 17 homers, 20 steals, a 931 OPS, one of the best players in fantasy. Final 3 months when he was playing through some of those injuries, 225 with 5 homers, 5 steals, a 690 OPS. So a far cry from the player he was earlier in the season. I think he's a good bet to go 25-25. I agree the batting average will be better than Carroll. I also agree. I think it's kind of a toss-up between those two. I have him at this spot for now just because I could see it going up a little bit if he signs with like the Yankees, let's say. I could see it going down a little bit if he signs with the Giants, who have been in on big name free agents in the past and obviously could throw a lot of money at Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
Not a great place to hit for left-handed power.
As with any impending free agent, subject to change depending on where they sign.
All right, next up for me, we have the 10th overall pick in this one. I am going to go with Julio Rodriguez. For those watching, you see the Mariners jersey here on display. Finishes the 13th overall player in Roto. Actually, the 11th best hitter in head-to-head points, which surprised me a little bit. It's not like the plate discipline got better, but, did the thing again. Slow start for J-Rod, then really picked things up in July. He wound up hitting 267, 32 homers, 30 steals, right around 100 in terms of runs and RBI. I think he's a pretty safe floor too. He's gone 20-20 in all 4 seasons. He's gone 25-25 in 3 of 4. He's gone 30-30 in 2 of 4. So I don't know, based on what we've seen so far, if there really is that massive upside for J-Rod, unless he just stops getting off to these slow starts and just does it all season long. But we have enough of a track record to kind of, expect this, which is still a very good player. And I think a late first round pick there with J-Rod. So he's the number 10 pick. Scott, over to you for number 11.
Well, I'm going to go with Garrett Crochet. So you have the number 1 starting pitcher ranked a little higher than me, and I guess I have the number 2 starting pitcher ranked a little higher than you. Because for me, Skubal and Crochet are inseparable. So if Judge and Ohtani are 1 and 1A in the overall rankings, then I think Skubal and Crochet are 1 and 1A at the starting pitcher rankings, because they were as close as it gets, I feel like, in the year they just had. And obviously it met our expectations for both, our best expectations for both. Crochet actually was the better strikeout pitcher of the two in 2025. So I think he's just as much of a impactful league winning type of starting pitcher as Skubal is. And I will take him here at 11th.
I have absolutely no issue with that. I have Crochet at 13, so just a little bit lower. I guess the difference is Skubal has done it for 1 extra season than Crochet has done, but it's not me doubting Crochet. I completely buy it, and I think he's in this mix here as a borderline first round pick. So that was the number 11 player. So rounding out the first round, I am going to go with Francisco Lindor, which might surprise some people here. I have Lindor a little bit ahead of Ellie De La Cruz. Lindor to me is just, again, I'm shooting for consistency and floor, I guess, in the early rounds here. And he just finished 12th overall in Roto. He has finished as a top 12 player 4 years in a row. Between 8 and 12 overall, each of those 4 years, he just hit 31 homers with 31 steals, 117 runs scored, a career high. Pretty much would expect that with Juan Soto hitting behind him again next season. If you look at Lindor's average season over the past 4 years, 265, 31 homers, 110 runs, 30 steals. Just incredibly consistent. So I'm going to take him here at number 12 overall. And Scott, we are into the second round. Pick 13. You're up.
Yeah, this would never happen at 12 or 13 because obviously it's the same team taking these players. You took Lindor. I will take Ellie De La Cruz, who I actually rank ahead of Lindor in this scoring format. I have Lindor ahead in points leagues. You're taking all the safe guys, so I'm left to take all the risky guys, I guess. Ellie De La Cruz, sort of like Kyle Tucker, horrible second half. Also like Kyle Tucker, it seems like he was playing through an injury, in his case a quad injury, that Terry Francona revealed early on in August. And Ellie De La Cruz kept playing, kept not performing very well. But this was a guy who was being drafted top 6 coming into 2024. And so I think getting him here at 13, obviously expect him to be fully healthy at the start of next year. He was great in the first half, made some of the strides we wanted to see from him as a hitter, namely cutting down on the strikeouts. I don't think we'll see him get back to 60 steals like we saw in 2024 because Terry Francona has kind of de-emphasized being aggressive for steals, but I do think Elly De La Cruz, if he's healthy, if he's performing all year, you can pencil him in for 40 to go along with 25 homers. And that would obviously merit taking him here early in round 2.
Yeah, and I think it's a flip of the coin too between him and Lindor. If you wanted to shoot for more upside, I can totally see Ellie's steals bouncing back a little bit. I think we both agree he's not going to get back to 67, but I could see him pushing 50 steals. He's still fast enough, athletic enough, and he improved as a hitter this year. The strikeouts came down. I think just kind of a base median expectation for Ellie is 260 batting average, 25-ish home runs, and 40 to 50 steals. I think he still has actually upside to be a little bit better than that.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically who he was this year. A little shy of 25 homers, a little shy of 40 steals, but got the 260 batting average. And that was with a dreadful second half. So, yeah, I think if you're setting that as the baseline, you can be pleasantly surprised if he does surpass it.
And Chris has brought this up a few times as well. I mean, dealt with just a traumatic life event, his sister passing away in the middle of the season. And obviously, human dealing with something, that massive off the field as well, along with, it sounds like this quad injury. It kind of, there are reasons to kind of see here why Ellie had the down second half here in 2025. So that was the 13th overall player. We're up to the second pick of round 2, and that is going to be Paul Skeens for me. So again, I think he's kind of right in the same mix as Garrett Crochet. The way you feel about Crochet and Scooble, Scott, is how I feel about Crochet and Skeens. Like once one goes off the board, I kind of feel like the next one should just go off the board between those two. And very clearly, those three are just the top 3 starting pitchers in fantasy for next year. Insane numbers and ratios for Paul Skeens. Eerily similar to his rookie season. I mean, if you look at what he did, it was a 197 ERA, 0.95 whip this year. His rookie season, 196 ERA, 0.95 whip. So we basically have 2 years worth of data of this just being Paul Skeens. The biggest drawback for him is that he had just 10 wins, thanks to a obviously pretty bad Pirates team here this past season. And I'll just throw this out there. I think there's a non-zero chance that some team offers the Pirates a Godfather offer this offseason, and Paul Skeens gets traded. I know it's still like early on in his team control and everything, but the Pirates are so bad and they have so many holes on their team that if you can get a Juan Soto-esque offer, like what the Padres gave up to get Juan Soto from the Nationals back in the day for Paul Skeens, I think it's something that they should look into and actually consider doing. So
yeah, I think they should. Like if they're not going to use this opportunity with Paul Skeens to bolster their roster, maybe push the limits of their budget in a way they rarely do, then they should just offload him for a massive package, because you never know how long he's going to stay healthy and at the top of his game like this. But I don't think they will. But you're right that they should. If they're not going to try, they should cash in. So that would be nice, because that is the main reason why Skeens is the clear third for me of those 3. Is he pitches for the Pirates. He also doesn't quite measure up to Crochet and Scooble in terms of strikeouts. He's still great for strikeouts, but they're on another level. But yeah, the clear top 3, I'd be happy to take any of them at the point they're likely to go. And it's going to be a long time before I consider taking the number 4 starting pitcher, whoever it ends up being for me.
All right, we are up to the third pick of round 2, and Scott, is back to you.
Okay, this might be the most controversial one so far, but I'm going with Kyle Schwarber here. He will no longer have outfield eligibility, so he's occupying your DH spot. I don't think there are... I guess there's Christian Yelich. He's going to be DH only. I guess there's Jordan Alvarez. He's going to be DH only. But I'm not going to worry so much about that at this point, because I think by getting Kyle Schwarber here almost halfway through round 2, you're getting such a good value, such a consistent standout in home runs, runs, and RBI, and now not such a liability in batting average. His first couple years in Philly, it was, he was hitting around 200. It wasn't great, but he's gotten back on track, more like a 240 hitter the past couple years, and that's what he used to be before going to Philly. So I think he's a 3-category monster, and frankly, categories that need to be filled early on without really harming you in batting average. He's a free agent as well. Be great if he went back to Philly, but I think even if he doesn't, his power would play anywhere. He'd still bat high in the lineup. I think it's time to stop downgrading Kyle Schwarber and just take his numbers where they deserve to go, which I think is this early.
Yeah, I have him down at 20th overall, but I can't really argue against taking him this early. You mentioned, the runs and RBI in particular, Schwarber has averaged 215 runs plus RBI per season over the last 4 years. That is just incredible track record and consistency there from Kyle Schwarber. The big question, obviously, yes, free agent. He's also turning 33. You're buying off of a career year, so I don't typically like doing that, but I'd be more likely to take him in the late second round. And if it's a points league, Scott, I think he's like a first round pick. So
yeah, I have him as a first rounder in points leagues as well.
All right. So next up, that's going to be the 4th pick of round 2. That's pick 16.
We're only 4 picks into round 2. I said it was almost halfway through.
Yeah, we got to pick things up a little bit here. But
yeah,
I will take Fernando Tatis Jr. here as the 16th overall player. He stayed healthy for a full season. It was a very good one. And I think some people thought it could be better if he ever managed to stay healthy. But 268, 25 homers, 111 runs scored, 32 steals, 155 games, a career high here for Fernando Tatis. The best plate discipline of his career as well. So I still think there's a little bit more that we can squeeze out of Tatis here, but this was still a great season for him. And I think he's totally worthy of being an early to mid second round pick. And he's actually kind of become better in a points league, which is weird to say.
Yeah, because the plate discipline improved. I do rank Fernando Tatis higher in points leagues. He's another one where the addition of pull air rate on a player's baseball savant page kind of opened my eyes to what's been going on with Tatis consistently underperforming his expected stats. He did again in 2025. It's just not a very good pull air rate.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you can pencil him in for 30 homers in the way you'd like an early rounder to be. I do have him in my second round, but I have him a few picks later than you do because I think we just need to start taking his numbers at face value and stop expecting him to be a little bit better than he was because the expected stats say he should have been.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think a theme that we'll see here is I kind of play more into the power and speed combinations, and you're just kind of like, hey, give me the most bankable stats that you could possibly get. And you see that in Kyle Schwarber, and I don't know, maybe with your next pick too. I don't know who it is, but we'll find out right now. The 5th pick of round 2, 17th overall.
I wouldn't mind taking this guy ahead of Schwarber for positional reasons. It's Cal Raleigh.
Ooh.
Mr. Mariners jersey over there. Cal Raleigh. He'll probably never have a year as good as the one he just had again because it was historic in so many ways, but he was way, way, way ahead of every other catcher. And the playing time is going to remain what it is because of his defense. It's always been that good. He's always had a playing time advantage at the position, which has given him an advantage in the counting stats. It's just whether he lives up to this second round pick, how many home runs does he lose from 60? Does he go back to hitting mid 30s? Probably be a stretch to take him here, but I don't think a disaster. And, there's a lot of places that home run total could fall between 35 and 60 that would make Cal Raleigh absolutely worth taking here. He was arguably the most valuable player in fantasy this past year.
Yeah, he finished 2nd overall in Roto. He was the 4th best hitter in head-to-head points leagues. That's with an ADP around, I think it was 80-ish coming into the season. So to provide that much value, he was one of the most valuable players. The question is, how much will Cal Raleigh regress? But obviously just coming off an insane MVP worthy season. And in case you're wondering how he did it, he leaned into pulling the ball in the air even more. It was 38% pulled air rate there for Cal Raleigh, which just allowed him to completely maximize his power potential this past season. So that was Scott's pick there at the 5th pick of round 2. That was pick 17. So the 6th pick of round 2, I am going to go with, who's my next player? Jackson Trio, who eerily similar rookie and sophomore seasons. He was limited to just 131 games due to a strained right hamstring that caused him to miss a month. But when he played, he hit 270, 21 home runs, 21 steals. Counting stats were okay. He's a very aggressive hitter at the plate. He doesn't walk very much. He also doesn't strike out very much. Scott, the skill set reminds me a lot of Julio Rodriguez, who we spoke about a little bit earlier. And I still think Churio could get even better. I mean, he's only, I think he's 21 years old, or he's turning 22 in March of next year. And he obviously plays for a great Brewers team. So I would, assuming health, just kind of pencil him in for like 25 next year. And if he gets better, I think he can just be like a 30-30 bat as soon as next season with a 260, 270-ish batting average. And that's very similar to Julio Rodriguez. So I think Trio is like an early to mid second round player again.
I have him more like a late second rounder. I described it in my articles. He's about 85% of what Julio Rodriguez is. Young enough that he could get better. He really doesn't hit the ball that hard.
Yeah, that part of it is weird.
But, he's young enough that could improve. I think Churio will be a hard sell here because it feels like he disappointed. But he basically had the exact same season he had as a rookie. We were just expecting improvement. We were expecting his second half numbers from his rookie season to translate over a full season, and that didn't happen.
And if he didn't miss a month, I think he probably comes close to going 25-25. But, when you factor that in, that's why the numbers look pretty similar to his rookie season. So, I will be happy to take Churio in this range of category leagues next season. He is a name that in points leagues will drop down a little bit, probably more like a 3rd or maybe even 4th round pick there with Churio in a points league. All right, Scott, over to you. 7th pick of round 2.
Yeah. So our approaches here,
I'm going like power and speed, and you're just like, hey, give me all the power I could possibly get.
Yeah. So this is going to look a little funny. The way we're kind of ping-ponging back and forth between the approaches here in round 2, because I'm going Nick Kurtz. It's between him and another young player at a corner infield position. Junior Cabanero plays the weaker position, actually. But I prefer Kurtz because I trust him more. I think he's a more well-rounded hitter. It'd be easier to say that if his strikeout rate wasn't pushing 30%. That does give me pause because I don't like high strikeout rates. I never have. But it just, anywhere he's played, it hasn't seemed to matter. I mean, he's just been a monster. Took all of 33 games in the minors to force his way to the majors. And after a couple weeks adjustment period, he became a monster there too. So, and that was as a 22-year-old rookie. I think even if he doesn't improve, he's worth this spot. And if he does improve, then I don't even know how high the upside could be for Nick Kurtz because he's already so good.
Yeah, he's going to be a polarizing player for sure. I have him a little bit lower. I have him at 22 overall, so more like a late second round pick. Worried about the strikeout rate, but I mean, what he did as a rookie, man. 290, 36 home runs. His full season pace, 49 homers, 124 runs, 119 RBI for Nick Kurtz. We spoke about this in season. His K rate did improve in August. It was like 26%, but then in September it went all the way back up to 35%. So
yeah,
just
September was like his one bad month.
Yeah, a little bit worried about the strikeout rate and what the batting average could turn out to be. But I totally trust the power. I think Nick Kurtz is hitting 40 home runs next year with, honestly, the upside to push 50.
He did hit 290 is where it actually ended up with even with it lagging some in September.
And the XBA was 255 too. So not that I want to put too much into that. It's like when we have a player this good, this young, I actually take expected stats a little bit lesser for just a freak athlete, a freak prospect like this, just because, I don't really want to doubt what they just did. But, when you consider the strikeouts and things, I think there is a little bit of batting average risk there with Nick Kurtz. So to continue our trend here, Scott, the 8th pick of round 2, I'm going to go back to the power and speed and a bit of a bounce back candidate here. I am not taking Junior Caminero. I'm actually going to go with Gunnar Henderson. So I kind of feel like this injury that he suffered right before the season just kind of threw everything off. There are no quotes to back that up. He didn't blame it on that. Nobody in the Orioles front office blamed it on that, but it just seems to make sense, right? Like a guy this good, this young, I don't think he just kind of falls off that quickly out of nowhere. So obviously the home runs went from 37 to 17. The batting average was still similar. The steals actually went up to 30. I'm kind of expecting something similar to Jackson Chourio. I think the bounce back for Gunnar Henderson is, I'd expect something like 25, 270, 275 batting average. And again, that's just kind of my baseline expectation. He could be even better than that, as young as he is. And I expect the Orioles team to bounce back in general next season as well. So, I'm a little bit, I think I'm going to be a little bit higher on Gunnar Henderson. I have him as a mid-second round pick here, taking him with the 8th pick of round 2. Back over to you for pick 9, round 2.
I think I have him as my 8th pick in round 2 also, Henderson.
Okay.
It's just, you've taken some players I have ranked after him, ahead of him. But anyway, we feel the same way about Gunnar Henderson. So Junior Caminero is my next pick, since it was between him and Kurtz for my last pick.
Caminero! Ha! Ha, Caminero!
All right, I'm done.
Third base is a position you should prioritize early to a degree. You obviously don't want to reach, but when in doubt, it's a position you want to prioritize because it gets ugly fast. I think the only other position, the only position that outdoes it in that regard is second base. Junior Caminero is clearly number 2, coming off a 45 homer season as a 22-year-old, right? Living up to the billing as an elite hitting prospect. And I guess the one concern is that sounds like the Rays are going to be back at Tropicana Field.
Yeah.
And that has been, it's the backdrop, some hitters have complained about it. It's been a difficult place for some players to hit, but we have no evidence that Caminero is going to be one of those players. And I don't worry about the home away splits because the home run were dead even. So I don't think it's a big deal. He just looks like a stud.
Yeah, this is another one just like Nick Kurtz where maybe I should just take at face value what these young stud prospects did in their first full seasons. But the reasons you mentioned, I do worry a little bit more about what he did on the road this season when he hit 218 with a 743 OPS. And if you look at park factors, Steinbrenner Field this year, where Caminero crushed it, they were that ballpark was 10th in overall park factor, 7th in home run park factor. Tropicana Field, the 3 years prior, 29th in overall park factor, 18th in home run factor. So it just adds a variable and element that I wish wasn't there for Junior Caminero going into next season. But I still pretty much think he's going to be awesome.
Unlike Kurtz, no strikeout problems for Caminero. It's worth pointing out. He struck out less than 20% of the time.
Yep. All right, the 10th pick of round 2 here. I'm going to go with Jazz Chisholm, who I spoke about earlier. Again, just looking for that power and speed. He went 30-30 despite missing a month of the season, and he's entering a contract year somehow, some way. Lots of people, hitters, find a way to stay healthy in a contract year, and the talent here is evident with Jazz, who really has taken full advantage of the short portion in right field in Yankee Stadium and has kind of tailored his swing to that approach. So if it's a big if, Jazz could stay healthy for like 150 plus games, he could go 35-35. He could push 40-40. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility here. All right, Scott, your last pick and the second to last pick of round 2.
Trey Turner.
Yep.
We know who Trey Turner is. Good for average, good for speed. Probably the lowest home run hitter of all the ones we're picking today. But, he's not a negative for home runs. And, plays in one of the best lineups in baseball. So I think this is the point to take him.
Yeah, he was my next ranked player as well. He does make for an interesting just build in roto category leagues because he provides good batting average, runs scored, and steals. But his home runs and RBI they're not very good for a second round player. So you just have to be cognizant of that and pair him with, an Aaron Judge or, some other big power hitting RBI producer in the first round of drafts. But if you do that, I think
that might be the way it goes, pairing Turner with either Judge or Ohtani.
Yeah, I think that would work out pretty well. The last pick here for today that we're rounding out the first 2 rounds. I can go in a bunch of different directions here. The player that I have ranked next and will draw the ire of many, I'm sure, is Yordan Alvarez, who a completely lost season due to injury. He only played 48 games, missed nearly 4 months with something that started out as right hand inflammation. It turned out to be a fracture in that hand, and then he suffered a significant left ankle sprain. But when he's played the previous 4 years before this, he's been very consistent between 31 and 37 home runs, good batting average. I still think when he plays, he's one of the best 4 category contributors in the game, but there is significant risk with this pick, which kind of goes against all the other picks that I've been making. But I think he's kind of in this mix as like a 2-3 turn pick.
I am shocked because I mentioned earlier, Yordan Alvarez isn't going to have outfield eligibility to begin next year. He's DH only. So
it sounds like you don't have him in your first 2 rounds.
No, I'm not sure I have him in my 3rd round.
Oh, okay.
Would you take him over Kurtz and Caminero? I know you didn't get a chance to take either of those 2.
No, I have.
You have Alvarez ahead of them.
No. I have Alvarez behind them.
Oh, okay.
I have Kurtz at 22, Caminero at 23, and then so my 24, 25, 26 is Alvarez, Vlad Jr., Pete Alonso. So
so you're taking him over Vlad, who we were almost 20. I think we almost had the same 24 players in our first 2 rounds. Yeah. It's just Alvarez. You have Alvarez. I have Guerrero.
Vlad is just so frustrating, man. If you look at his overall finishes, the last
Alvarez isn't.
You're right. But overall finishes for Vlad the last 5 years: 43, 13, 62, 24, 1.
Yeah.
What do we do?
You're taking him 24. So
yeah, I mean, look, the year he finished as the top player, I don't really think that's in his range of outcomes. I think it was circumstances that allowed that to happen, playing in minor league parks and things like that. But so basically his range is between 13 and 62 the last 4 years for Vlad, which is fine. Like if you want to take him or Alonso ahead of Yordan, I have no problem with that. To be honest, I didn't really know exactly what to do with Yordan Alvarez, so I just kind of
it is a tough one. But you're taking him over Vlad, you're taking him over Ketel Marte, you're taking him over Pete Crow Armstrong.
As of now, I'm open to discussion in the office.
You're taking him over Alonso, any of those other great first basemen.
I had James Wood and PCA at like 27 and 28 too. I think they're kind of right in that discussion. So
taking him over, who's my next shortstop? Mookie Betts. Yeah, I might take him over Mookie Betts too. But okay. I think it's a bold choice, but we'll have all off season to talk about it.
We'll call that the honorary Chris Towers pick, because I'm sure if Chris was here, Yordan Alvarez would have been somewhere in these first 2 rounds. So just to recap our first round, Aaron Judge, Ohtani, Bobby Witt, Juan Soto, Jose Ramirez, Tarek Skubal, Ronald Acuna, Corbin Carroll, Kyle Tucker, Julio Rodriguez, Garrett Crochet, and Francisco Lindor. The second round, we had Ellie De La Cruz, Paul Skeens, Kyle Schwarber, Fernando Tatis Jr., Cal Raleigh, Jackson Churio, Nick Kurtz, Gunnar Henderson, Junior Caminero, Jazz Chisholm, Trey Turner, and Yordan Alvarez. All right, we are going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball Today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again later this week. Bye-bye.